Ladies and gentlemen, this is a Mitsubishi I Miev, and it's the rarest car that we have reviewed to date. And that's because Mitsubishi only sold 2,108 of these Mitsubishi I Mievs in the United States. A brief history lesson about the Mitsubishi I Miev. Mitsubishi first brought this into market in 2012 to compete with the Nissan Leaf, its other electric rival. And that's right, this car is fully electric. It has 70 miles of range, all of 66 horsepower, and 147 pound-feet of torque. And when it came out, it was found to be the cheapest EV on sale. It undercut the Nissan Leaf and its other rivals. However, their cost-saving strategies really showed, and as a result, the car ended up becoming known as the worst-selling car in the United States, therefore left the US market in 2016. So funny enough, while I have been pronouncing the name of this car the I Miev, you're actually supposed to pronounce it the I Miev EV, because you're supposed to look at the EV. Yeah, I know, corny joke. But Miev actually is an acronym for something. It stands for Mitsubishi Innovative Electric Vehicle. And while it is somewhat innovative in the sense that, well, it's battery powered, the rest of it is kind of a parts bin special. Let me show you what I mean. And one more thing before we go into the actual review of this video, I should mention that the owner of this car is currently selling it right now. It's a 2012 Mitsubishi I Miev. You can call the person at 302-750-1637. It only has 2,124 miles, and it can be yours for all of $6,500. By buying that, you could have one of the rarest cars in the United States, certainly one of the rarest electric cars in the United States. Give them a call if you ever need it. The first thing we need to talk about on the Mitsubishi I Miev is, well, the overall design. You can see it's kind of a circle that goes all the way around the doors of the Miev, and honestly it kind of looks reminiscent of the Bugatti Chiron, don't you think? Perhaps the Bugatti engineers and designers thought, oh yes, look at this fantastic masterpiece, let's go ahead and replicate it on our Bugatti Chiron. And while the Mitsubishi I Miev and the Bugatti Chiron don't entirely have a lot in common, they are both in their own rights revolutionary vehicles, which you can see when you go ahead and open the hood. It's the same way as you normally would. You just go ahead and pull the latch. I just need to go ahead and find it. Once you go ahead and open it, you can see there is no engine. And that's because, like I mentioned earlier, this car is all electric. All the batteries are underneath the floor of the car. And, well, you don't really get all that far with it. You only get 70 miles of range with the car. And that's because there's only 88 lithium-ion batteries that power this thing. Funny enough, there's no immediate way to hold the little hood open, and that's because it's hidden all the way back here. You just go ahead and lift this little thing right there. You put it right where the little arrow says, and that's what holds it up. And while that doesn't sound all too great, everyone needs to remember this car was not built to be in the likes of Tesla in the sense that you can take this highway driving all the time. This car was built to be a city car. So its 66 horsepower and 145 pound-feet of torque is more than enough that it needed to do city driving, especially for stop-and-go traffic, which is what this car was built to do. And in that, it does a really good job. It's very small, it's nimble, and, well, it was never meant to do highway driving or anything like that. And so we've got to treat this car as it is, and it does a magnificent job at doing that. And since the Mitsubishi I Miev is indeed a city car, they have made sure to put the wheels as far apart from themselves as possible, even though this car is tremendously small. And the reason they did that is because it gives the Mitsubishi I Miev a better turning radius, which is good for city driving. While we're on the subject of the Mitsubishi's wheels, let's talk tires and just how thin they are. I'm going to go and put my hand, and you can see my hand fully embraces the tire, which goes to show just how skinny they are. And welcome aboard the interior of the Mitsubishi I Miev, where we need to talk about some of the cost-saving strategies Mitsubishi has underwent when making this car. It's rather surprising that there are this many, given that this car in 2012 was $31,000 new, or somewhere along those lines. The first example of this is the overall lack of armrest in the center console, or what you would normally think would be a center console. What really is in the middle of your two seats is your gear shifter, your armrest, and a cup holder that's more for the rear. And while it may look like there's only one cup holder in the Mitsubishi Miev, they do have a few tricks up their sleeves. You can see Mitsubishi has given you a cup holder right there, and it really is a cup holder that holds your drinks. It renders the climate vents absolutely useless, but that's arguably one of my favorite features in the car. You can see there's also one on the driver's side. You go ahead and pull it out, and there you go. Oddly enough, a theme of the electric Mitsubishi is the overall mechanical feel of the car. When you go ahead and bring down the sun visors, it's very difficult to do, and you go ahead and go to clip it back in, it makes quite a ruckus. You can see it feels very mechanical for what's an electric car. You can see that again when you go ahead and unlock the doors while they're locked. It makes a humongous noise. Take a listen. For an electric car, you would think that everything would be so quiet, but this honestly feels like a down-to-earth mechanical car, and in that, the Mitsubishi's interior really does feel like any regular car. Another thing that we need to talk about that I absolutely love about the Mitsubishi Miev's interior is the climate control buttons and just how JDM they look and feel. They're very surprisingly nice. At first I thought they were very cheap, but once I started messing around with them, I realized just how fun they are. They look like they would come straight out of the 90s JDM era with the Mitsubishi Evos and Mazda RX-8s. But again, you're in an electric Mitsubishi. It's so cool. Another thing that I absolutely love about the Mitsubishi Miev's interior is the lights and how they give you options as to how the lights work. You can turn them on with the little switch, or you can turn them on with the little buttons right here. It's so cool. It gives you options. Now that I'm finished having my fun with the lights, we need to talk about the gear selector and how it's actually rather different than any other gear selector Mitsubishi has made so far. You can see you have your regular gears. You have park, reverse, neutral, and drive, but then you have eco and B, and those are all different drive modes for how you can go ahead and drive your Mitsubishi Miev. So starting off with eco, which obviously means economical driving, and how Mitsubishi does that is they actually limit the amount of horsepower the car produces. So it'll actually cut down your 66 horsepower to a lower number so you can actually get farther on your electrical charge. And next is B, which oddly enough is for the regenerative braking system, which the Mitsubishi I Miev does actually have. If you go ahead and put it in B, it fully utilizes the regenerative braking to get you that little bit extra range that you otherwise might not get. And as for the starting procedure of the Mitsubishi Miev, it's really uneventful. You go ahead and start it, and well, the car is on just like that, and it really does not make any noise whatsoever. Nothing from the electric motors. It's a very quiet place to be. The only loud thing is the climate vents in here. And once you have the car on, you can go ahead and look at the gauge cluster, and more specifically the Mitsubishi OS, or the Mitsubishi operating system, which can be controlled by this little dial right here. You go ahead and press it. You can see that little screen, which is what Mitsubishi calls Mitsubishi OS, changes various controls in the car. Now welcome aboard the rear of the Mitsubishi Miev, where you can see there's not a whole lot going on back here. You can see you have your rather standard bench seat in the back, you have a little cup holder right here, and Mitsubishi has even given you little storage pockets, but other than that, there's not a whole lot to talk about. That is, except for this little center button where you can see you have the Mitsubishi I logo for the I Miev right in the middle, and those little 6 dots, which is a theme all throughout the vehicle. You go ahead and look at the lock and unlock button right there. You can see it has the 6 dots. You go to the door panel and you can see it. And you go ahead and take a look at the rims and you can see those same 6 dots. It's a theme with the Mitsubishi Miev. Not only that, but the little bench seat gives you the ability to recline your seats. You go ahead and put the little lever down and you can recline them. They don't recline all that far because of the rear trunk space, which we'll show you in a second, but it's still better than nothing. Speaking of the rear boot space, observe all of basically no space back there. However, Mitsubishi has thought of a way to remedy this. You go ahead and pull that lever down, again, the recliner, and the seat falls all the way flat. You do need to take off the headrest, which is your rather standard procedure. You just press a little button right here and rip it off. Just like that, you've drastically increased your loading floor. Additionally, there is a little secret little storage space right here. You go ahead and press down on these two latches and this whole panel comes off. Really, it's not much of a storage space unless you make it. Primarily, this is used to open the charging door, which is where you would normally charge your Mitsubishi. And here's where you would normally think your hood release is, but really it's how you open the charging door. You go ahead and pull it up just like so, and the charging door opens right up. For those of you wondering, right here on the passenger side is where the hood release is. You go ahead and press that latch and that's how you open the hood. And right here is where the charging door is. You go ahead and open it and you go ahead and press this little latch and it opens right up. It's your rather standard affair as to how you charge it. The owner tells me that it takes him about 7 to 8 hours to fully charge this thing, which is a rather long time considering that it only has 70 miles. But again, the car only was built in 2012, so the technology wasn't as great as it is now. So ladies and gentlemen, that was your tour of the Mitsubishi I Miev. And when this car was new, Mitsubishi really did call this car the Mitsubishi Innovative Electric Vehicle. And while by today's standards it doesn't look like it, in 2012 this car was among the most revolutionary cars ever made, especially from the Japanese. And if you want to own this piece of history in Mitsubishi's lineup, here's your chance. Only one of 2,108 sold in the United States. And with only 2,124 miles, this is one of the best examples that you can get in the United States right now. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. That was Alex Automotive. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my cameraman. His name is Prabhat Naumili, and he makes everything possible, so a massive shout out to him.
Hi guys, hope you're enjoying the content and keep up the good support.
And while the batteries aren't exactly the most powerful, as they only produce 66 horsepower, it does have a lot of torque. It has 147 pound-feet of torque, which is more than enough. Enough. I mispronounced my N. And in the little gauge cluster, you can see something that Mitsubishi calls Mitsubishi OS, or the Mitsubishi operating. I have a horrible cameraman. Yes, I do. This is what his name is, and he's useless.
You put the angle idiotically.